My favorite is still the standard Wisconsin-style bratwurst to make. And people here eat a lot of them. I mean, heck, parents up here save tons of money on buying pacifiers. They just shove a Wisconsin-style brat in their kid's mouth to keep them from crying. So grab a pen and some paper, sausage fans. We're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. Around this neck of the woods, we call this recipe a Sheboygan brat. Not Sheboygan, Sheboygan. Now, most of you out there, I'm Ricer with Dead Broke Barbecue, and I suppose you can tell that I'm from Wisconsin. Not only do we make a lot of beer cans and cheese here, we're also known for making sausage. But like my German blood would say, ich machen Sie Wurst. Up here in God's country, we make all kinds of fresh and cured sausage. But my favorite is still the standard Wisconsin-style bratwurst to make. And people here eat a lot of them. I mean, heck, parents up here save tons of money on buying pacifiers. They just shove a Wisconsin-style brat in their kid's mouth to keep them from crying. So grab a pen and some paper, sausage fans. We're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. Around this neck of the woods, we call this recipe a Sheboygan brat. Not Sheboygan, Sheboygan. Now, most of you out there have had a Johnsonville brat before, but they're a lot weaker in flavor compared to what they were in the 70s. So figure that this recipe is a Johnsonville brat on steroids. You know, bussin' with the flavor. This recipe gives you a good base so you can experiment down the road. I mean, grab a couple grams of onion powder, toss it in, and now you've got an onion brat. Or a gram of sage, and now you got some breakfast links. The first time that I made brats was with an old retired butcher from Kaiserslautern, Germany. His name was George, and he used egg whites. Wunderbar. The other great thing about making brats is that it is a fresh sausage, so we don't have to worry about any cures or a fermentation process to deal with. This is a great recipe for all of you beginners. So there really isn't a big stress about screwing this recipe up. The first thing that we're gonna need for this recipe is some pork butt. Obviously, American pork butt has a perfect fat to meat ratio for any fresh sausage brats. I do trim off any of the blood spots or gobbledygook because I do not want to bite into that crap. And I can almost guarantee you that this recipe will develop phenomenal athletes. I mean, I'm just spitting some facts. It's proven 100%. After I get all the pork butt trimmed up, I cut them into pieces that will easily fit down the throat of any grinder that I'm using that day. I weigh the pork butt and I write that info down because we're gonna need that information, so we add the correct ingredients. After it's all cut, I always put my meat back in the freezer so it can get nice and cold. I never want to grind any meat above 35 degrees, especially when I get into those 50-pound batches, because there's nothing worse than a sausage where the fat started to separate and melt. In my opinion, that becomes more of a drier bite. So always keep that meat nice and cold. While this meat is cooling down, it's a great time to get your ingredients out and start measuring them up. I always measure everything out in grams, including the meat, because it just makes it a lot easier. Number one, you'll be able to measure out the exact amounts that you need for a recipe. And number two, it makes it a lot easier if you're experimenting to be able to duplicate it in the future. It also makes it easier if you're gonna make a larger or a smaller batch. This way, your ingredients percentages are always gonna be the same. So get yourself a cheap gram scale. You want it to be able to measure in the tenths, but if you can find one that's in the hundreds, that's even a tad better. But they do get a little bit pricier. This one here, that's like $20 on Amazon. For this recipe, you're going to need 10 ingredients. Obviously, we're gonna need pork butt. Then we're gonna need some sea salt, sugar or dextrose, and yeah, I've got a lot of dextrose. You're gonna need some ground coriander, nutmeg, caraway, marjoram, ginger, celery seed. Now on the last ingredient, this is where I kind of switch things up so I can end up with two different versions. On one batch, I'll use black pepper, and that's more of your standard Wisconsin-style brat. On the other batch, though, I use white pepper, and that's a lot spicier. And I have to say that I think my family and I like them better. But if you're not a big peppery flavored person, you might just want to stick with the black pepper. And in my recipe, I do have white or black pepper. So you decide. But don't worry, I'll have the recipe for these Wisconsin-style brats in the description below. Now here's a pro tip. I always want my spices in more of a powder form when I'm making sausage. So I have this cheap little coffee grinder that comes in handy when I can't find any of my spices at the store that are already ground. Like the caraway, marjoram, and the celery seed. I always grind them up for about a half